Life has always been unpredictable, but today we face more uncertainty than ever: endless news cycles, volatile markets, personal upheavals. And yet, 2,000 years ago, a Roman emperor wrote words that still cut through the chaos. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. Marcus Aurelius wasn't just philosophizing. He was handing us the keys to unshakable resilience. That's what Stoicism does. It turns life's turbulence into a training ground for inner strength. Over the next 21 principles, we'll explore how this ancient philosophy gives you the tools to stay steady when everything feels unstable, not by ignoring reality, but by mastering your response to it. This isn't abstract theory. It's a battle-tested blueprint for peace in a world that refuses to sit still. Let's begin. The first and most powerful Stoic principle cuts straight to the heart of human suffering. Focus only on what you can control. Everything else, noise. Epictetus, the former slave-turned-philosopher, put it bluntly: some things are up to us and some are not. That simple division between what's within your power and what isn't changes everything. Think about it like weather. You can't stop the storm, but you can choose to carry an umbrella. Take a modern struggle like workplace stress, your boss's temper, company layoffs, even your commute. These are externals. But your preparation, your attitude, how you speak to colleagues after a tough meeting, that's your domain. The moment you stop trying to control the uncontrollable, you free up energy to master what actually matters: your choices. Here's the challenge: where do you waste effort fighting battles you can't win? Maybe it's obsessing over someone else's opinion or fretting about a future you can't predict. The Stoics would ask, does this serve you? If not, redirect that effort inward. Resilience isn't about weathering every storm, it's about knowing which storms are worth your attention. Amor Fati, love your fate. These two words hold the secret to turning life's harshest blows into hidden gifts. The Stoics didn't just endure hardship, they embraced it, believing every obstacle was woven into the fabric of their growth. Centuries later, Friedrich Nietzsche, no fan of passive suffering, stole this idea outright, declaring, "My formula for greatness is Amor Fati, to crave nothing different, not in the past, not in the future, not for all eternity." Consider Seneca, Rome's wealthiest philosopher, suddenly exiled to a barren island by a jealous emperor. Instead of crumbling, he treated it as a laboratory for his principles. His letters from exile reveal no bitterness, only curiosity. This place isn't punishment, it's where I test my philosophy. What if he'd spent those years raging against his misfortune? History would have forgotten him. Instead, his exile produced some of the most enduring wisdom of antiquity. Here's where most people stumble. They fight reality like it's a glitch in the system. Traffic jams, job rejections, even illness, we treat them as interruptions to real life. But Stoics ask, what if these weren't distractions but the actual curriculum? Picture a sailor wasting energy cursing the wind instead of adjusting the sails. The storm doesn't care about your opinion but your response. That rewrites the story. Try this today. Take one frustration you've resisted, a missed opportunity, an unexpected delay, and ask, how could this be the exact challenge I needed? Maybe that cancelled flight gave you uninterrupted time to think. Perhaps the project that failed saved you from a bigger mistake later. Amor Fati isn't blind optimism. It's recognizing that life's detours often lead to better terrain. Principle 3 takes Stoic wisdom into the arena of mental toughness. Premeditatio Malorum, the premeditation of evils. This isn't pessimism, it's strategic preparation. Seneca compared it to a general inspecting his defenses before battle. What will you do if exile comes, if poverty, if death? By facing worst-case scenarios in advance, you strip them of their power to paralyze you when they arrive. Think of elite athletes who visualize losing points or facing exhaustion before a match. They're not indulging fear, they're inoculating themselves against panic. A quarterback rehearses fumbles, a surgeon anticipates complications. Why? Because when disaster does strike, their response isn't raw emotion, it's trained instinct. The Stoics argued life is no different. Take financial instability. Most people avoid even thinking about job loss until it happens, guaranteeing they'll react from sheer dread. But picture someone who's mentally rehearsed it. If I lose my job, I'll cut non-essentials first, tap my network within 48 hours, and treat this as a chance to pivot. The crisis might still hurt, but it won't control them. That's the paradox. By willingly walking through hell in your mind, you extinguish its flames in reality. Here's how to practice this today. Identify one looming challenge, a difficult conversation, a career risk, and spend 5 minutes deliberately envisioning the worst possible outcome. Then ask, how would I survive this? What's my first move? You're not inviting disaster, you're building emotional calluses. As Seneca wrote while anticipating his own execution, the man who has rehearsed his death in advance is always braver than the one who never considered it. The modern world calls this stress testing, but the Stoics knew it 2 millennia earlier. Fear thrives on surprise. Premeditatio Malorum turns you from a victim of circumstance into a strategist, one who meets chaos not with wide eyes but with a steady breath and a plan. Principle 4 shifts our gaze upward literally. Marcus Aurelius had a mental exercise he called the view from above. Picture standing on a mountaintop looking down at bustling cities, tiny figures rushing about their lives. Now go higher, sea continents, oceans, the spinning earth. Suddenly, that argument you had or that missed deadline feels impossibly small against the vastness of existence. This wasn't escapism, it was perspective therapy. Modern science confirms what the Stoics intuited. Psychological distance dissolves anxiety. Therapists now use similar, zoom-out techniques to help patients separate from overwhelming emotions. It's why astronauts report life-changing clarity after seeing Earth from space, a phenomenon called the overview effect. Your worries don't vanish, but they regain their true proportions. Try this tonight. Step outside and look at the stars. Not casually, really look. Those pinpricks of light traveled thousands of years to reach your eyes. Against that timescale, how heavy does today's stress feel? Or borrow Aurelius' daily question, will this matter in a year? Most of what consumes our mental energy wouldn't even register on a cosmic timeline. But here's where Stoicism goes deeper than mere reassurance. The view from above isn't just about shrinking problems, it's about expanding agency. When you see your life as part of something vast, you stop mistaking traffic jams for tragedies. That mental space, that's where your power lives. A CEO facing bankruptcy once told me this exercise saved him. I realized my family's love didn't depend on my net worth. The panic lost its grip. Notice what's not happening here. No one's saying just relax or denying real pain. Instead, you're retraining focus, like adjusting a camera lens from macro to wide angle. The bills are still due, the conflict still needs resolving, but now you're handling them from a place of clarity, not claustrophobia. That shift changes everything. For a practical twist, combine this with technology. Set a phone wallpaper of Earth from space or use apps that simulate the overview effect. The goal isn't to dismiss daily struggles, but to meet them with the calm of someone who remembers, deep down, that storms look different when you're holding the horizon in view. History's most resilient people share this trait. They don't confuse intensity with importance. The view from above is their secret. It turns crises into challenges and challenges into chapters. Because when you stand far enough back, even the darkest moments become part of a pattern, one where growth and meaning always find a way. Principle 5 confronts what most cultures avoid discussing yet transforms lives when embraced. Memento Mori, remember you must die. Far from being morbid, the Stoics treated this as their most invigorating practice. Seneca captured its power perfectly. Let us prepare our minds as if we'd come to the very end of life. No one postpones making plans for this final moment. Imagine living with that clarity every single day. Roman generals had servants whisper, "Remember, you are mortal," in their ears during victory parades, not to dampen celebration but to sharpen judgment. Philosophers like Marcus Aurelius kept skulls on their desks not as decorations but as productivity tools. In our era of endless scrolling and vague existential dread, this principle cuts through the noise like a scalpel. If today were your last, how many of your current worries would even make the list? Here's the modern twist. We drown in trivial distractions, emails marked urgent, social media debates, the illusion of busyness. Yet when faced with actual mortality, their own or a loved one's, people consistently report two realizations. I wasted so much time on things that didn't matter, and why wasn't I living like this all along? The Stoics designed Memento Mori to bridge that gap before crisis strikes. Try this stark but liberating exercise tonight. Write your own eulogy, not the sanitized version for public consumption, but the raw truth, what you'd want it to say if courage and time weren't constraints. Are you proud of how you spent your days? Do the people you love know it? This isn't about grand achievements, it's about alignment. As Seneca noted, life is long if you know how to use it. A farmer who spends 40 years resenting his work dies young at 80. A teacher who finds meaning in each class lives fully at 30. Notice what's absent in Stoic writings, any obsession with how death comes. Their focus was always on what you do before it arrives. Epictetus, who endured slavery and physical disability, put it bluntly, death is inevitable, your fear of it is optional. That's the key. This principle isn't about counting down days, it's about making days count. When a CEO client of mine started beginning meetings by asking, "If this were our last conversation, what would we prioritize?" Agendas shrank by 70%, but impact soared. For those who find skulls too jarring, contemporary alternatives work just as well. A stopwatch on your desk, a sunset alarm, even a recurring calendar reminder labeled "What's Unconquerable Today?" The form doesn't matter, the shift in attention does. Mortality isn't lurking in the shadows, it's holding up a mirror. The reflection asks one question: are you spending your life or investing it? This is where Stoicism parts ways with both hollow positivity and bleak nihilism. By staring at life's brevity with clear eyes, you don't fall into despair, you wake up to possibility. Those who have faced terminal diagnoses often speak of an unexpected gift, the ability to instantly filter out nonsense. Memento Mori offers that filter now, without waiting for tragedy to force it upon you. The deadline isn't depressing, it's the design feature that makes your choices radiant with meaning. So tonight, as you turn off the screen and silence the distractions, ask the oldest and most life-giving question. What would today hold if I treated it not as guaranteed but as sacred? The answer might unsettle you at first. Then, like the Stoics, you'll discover its secret. Realizing you're mortal doesn't shrink your life, it expands how fully you live it. Principle 6 flips society's definition of success on its head. Virtue is the only true good. While most people chase wealth, status, or external validation, the Stoics built their entire philosophy on one radical idea: your character is your ultimate currency. Epictetus, the former slave who became philosophy's unshakable pillar, put it bluntly: wealth consists not in having great possessions, but in having few wants. To a Stoic, a corrupt billionaire is poorer than an honest carpenter. Take Cato the Younger, Rome's most stubbornly principled statesman. when Julius Caesar offered him power and riches to compromise just once, to bend his integrity for political gain, Cato refused, knowing history would remember his choices, not his comforts. His contemporaries called him rigid, the Stoics called him free. Here's where modern minds often rebel. If virtue doesn't pay the bills, what's the point? But that's the blind spot. Stoicism never said externals don't matter. It said they're secondary: money, useful, reputation, convenient, health, precious. Yet none define your worth. Imagine two chefs. One cuts corners for Michelin stars but hates his work. The other runs a modest diner with pride in every meal. Who's richer? The Stoics divided life into two categories: ta f hemen, what's up to us, and ta auk f hemen, what's not. Your honesty, up to you. Your promotion, not entirely. This reshapes ambition. A student obsessing over grades burns out. One focused on learning thrives regardless of the score. A salesperson fixated on commissions becomes desperate. One dedicated to serving clients finds success follows naturally. So here's the challenge: which virtue feels most fragile in your life right now? Courage in taking risks, patience with setbacks, justice in how you treat others. Pick one. Then, for the next week, measure your days not by outcomes, but by moments you lived it. The hard truth you told, the small kindness you chose, the failure you faced without self-deception. That's Stoic success. No leader, market, or luck can take it from you. This principle isn't about moral grandstanding, it's practical armor. When layoffs come, the employee who knows her worth isn't tied to a job title adapts fastest. When relationships fracture, the person grounded in self-respect walks away with dignity intact. Virtue isn't a lofty ideal, it's the bedrock of resilience. As Marcus Aurelius scribbled in his wartime journal, waste no more time arguing what a good man should be one. The twist: external rewards often do follow virtue, not because the universe owes you, but because excellence tends to compound. But even when they don't, the Stoics sleep soundly. Their wealth is internal, recession-proof, and grows precisely when life tests it most. That's the paradox. By caring less about conventional success, you become truly unshakable. Principle 7 reveals the alchemy of resilience, how obstacles become fuel when viewed through the Stoic lens. Marcus Aurelius put it best: the fire that melts butter forges steel. This isn't motivational fluff, it's an operating system for turning adversity into advantage. Centuries later, Thomas Edison embodied this when his lab burned down at 67. Watching flames consume years of work, he told his son, "There's great value in disaster. All our mistakes are gone now." Within weeks, he rebuilt and patented breakthroughs that eclipsed his previous work. Modern psychology calls this stress inoculation, the idea that controlled exposure to difficulty builds mental immunity. Silicon Valley's mantra of fail fast, fail often is just Stoicism repackaged for startups. But here's what most miss: it's not the failure that matters, but the framing. A chef who views a burnt dish as proof of incompetence quits. One who sees it as data on heat calibration improves. Same event, radically different outcomes. Consider how this plays out today. A coding bootcamp student fails their first project. Version 1, I'm not cut out for this. Version 2, the Stoic approach. Now I know exactly where my gaps are. This just saved me future embarrassment. One path leads to paralysis, the other to iteration. Even physical pain follows this rule. Studies show patients who view injuries as temporary challenges recover faster than those who see them as catastrophes. Here's your litmus test for any setback. Does this block my path or reveal a better one? When Spotify's founders were denied by every major record label, they pivoted to streaming, a model those very labels later begged to join. The obstacle was the opportunity. Ancient Stoics would have nodded in recognition. So let's make this personal. Think of one obstacle you're facing right now, a rejection, a limitation, even a fear. Now ask, what if this isn't stopping me, but steering me? Maybe that missed promotion frees you to explore entrepreneurship. That creative block forces you to find simpler, more powerful ideas. Like a river finding new paths around rocks, your resilience grows when you stop fighting the current and start using its force. History's most enduring breakthroughs share this trait. They didn't happen despite obstacles, but because of them. Vaccines from lab accidents, post-it notes from failed glue. The Stoics didn't just tolerate hardship, they mined it for hidden value. Your challenges aren't interruptions to your story, they're the plot twists making it worth telling. So tomorrow, when something goes wrong, catch yourself. That frustration, it's the friction before traction. That confusion, the blank space before clarity. The fire isn't your enemy, it's the forge, and what you're being shaped into is stronger than what you were before. Principle 8 might be the most counterintuitive yet deliberately embracing discomfort. While modern life obsesses over convenience, the Stoics practiced something radical, voluntary hardship. Ask yourself, when did you last choose to endure something difficult, not because you had to, but because you could? This isn't about masochism, it's about building immunity to life's inevitable shocks. Think of it like weight training for the mind. Just as lifting heavier weights prepares you for everyday tasks, small, intentional discomforts, cold showers, skipping snacks, walking instead of driving strengthen your capacity to handle unwanted hardships. The ancient Spartans slept on thin reed beds not because they lacked resources, but to remember they didn't need luxury to thrive. Modern research backs this. Studies show people who regularly expose themselves to mild stressors, like cold exposure or fasting, develop greater emotional resilience over time. Here's why this works. Comfort zones shrink when untouched. The person who avoids all discomfort panics at minor setbacks, but someone who's willingly fasted for a day knows hunger won't break them. Someone who takes cold showers learns they can tolerate more than they assumed. As Seneca wrote, set aside certain days to go without luxury. Learn the power of enough. Try this today. Pick one tiny voluntary discomfort. Leave your phone behind during lunch. Take the stairs instead of the elevator. Sit with an awkward silence instead of filling it. Notice what arises, not just in the moment, but in how you handle unrelated challenges later. Discomfort is like a muscle. The more you train it, the less life surprises throw you off balance. The Stoics weren't saying life should be hard. They were preparing for when it inevitably would be. Because here's the paradox, by regularly choosing small hardships, you reduce your fear of big ones. That job interview, that medical test, that tough conversation, they all become easier when you've proven to yourself again and again that discomfort isn't an enemy. It's the price of strength, and unlike fate's random blows, this is a price you choose to pay on your own terms. So tonight, as you reach for that extra blanket or second helping, pause. Could this be a moment to practice wanting less rather than having more? Not because deprivation is virtuous, but because freedom lies in knowing you're stronger than your comforts. That's the Stoic secret. What you willingly face, you cease to fear. Principle 9 delivers one of Stoicism's most practical tools, the discipline of assent. Picture this: someone cuts you off in traffic, your pulse spikes, your hands grip the wheel, words fly before you think. Now rewind. What if between that provocation and your reaction there was a space? Epictetus described this gap as where freedom lies. It's not events that disturb us, but our judgments about them. 2,000 years later, psychologists gave this a clinical name, cognitive behavioral therapy, and proved its power to rewire reactions. Think of your mind as a courtroom. External events, the rude email, the delayed flight, are merely evidence. You are the judge deciding what weight to give them. Most people skip deliberations and go straight to sentencing. The Stoics train you to pause. Is this truly harmful or just inconvenient? Is my interpretation accurate or inflated? That moment of questioning, that's the discipline of assent. Let's break it down with modern science. When your boss critiques your work, your amygdala screams threat. But neuroscience shows you have roughly 6 seconds before cortisol floods your system. Use that window. Ask, is this feedback factual? Does it help me improve, or is it just noise? CBT therapists call this cognitive distancing, the skill of separating facts from mental fabrications. The driver who cut you off wasn't targeting you, they were distracted or rushing. That reframe changes everything. Here's where most people stumble. They treat automatic thoughts as truth. They disrespected me becomes gospel without examination. Try this exercise today. Pick one recurring trigger, a coworker's tone, a long line at the store, and jot down your instant mental script, then interrogate it like a Stoic. Is this story I'm telling factual or just familiar? Does reacting this way serve me? The answers often reveal how much suffering we add to events. Epictetus, born a slave and crippled by his master's violence, had every reason to see the world as hostile. Yet he taught, men are disturbed not by things but by the views they take of them. That shift from passive victim to active interpreter is the genesis of resilience. Road rage becomes curiosity. I wonder what's happening in their life. Criticism transforms into data. Even pain, as Viktor Frankl showed in Auschwitz, loses its grip when you choose its meaning. Tonight, pay attention to your mental autopilot. When annoyance flares, borrow the Stoic pause. Ask, what story am I telling here? Is this judgment useful? That space between stimulus and response. That's where your power lies, and unlike the fleeting rush of reacting, this discipline compounds over time, until one day you realize life's turbulence no longer shakes you. It merely reminds you who's truly at the controls. Principle 10 stretches beyond the self. It's the Stoic concept of Sympathia, the profound interconnectedness of all things. Picture Marcus Aurelius gazing at the stars, writing in his journal, "What brings no benefit to the hive brings none to the bee." This wasn't poetic musing, it was a radical reminder that resilience isn't just personal, it's collective. While modern culture often glorifies individualism, the Stoics saw isolation as an illusion. Your well-being is woven into the fabric of others, nature, even chance encounters. Consider a workplace feud, 2 colleagues locked in competition. Each convinced victory requires the other's defeat. Now zoom out. Their department's success hinges on collaboration. The Stoic approach recognized that their friction weakens the entire hive. This isn't about self-sacrifice, it's pragmatic wisdom. Teams that grasp Sympathia outperform rigid hierarchies because they channel conflicts into solutions rather than power struggles. But this principle scales far beyond offices. Climate change, economic inequality, even social media algorithms thrive when we forget interconnection. The farmer who overuses pesticides may boost short-term yields, but depletes the soil his grandchildren will need. The Stoics would ask, how does this choice reverberate beyond my immediate gain? Ancient wisdom, yet painfully relevant in an era of viral misinformation and supply chain collapses. Here's where it gets practical. Start small. Next time you're tempted to dismiss someone's perspective, pause. Ask, what shared goal might this friction be pointing to? A parent and teenager clashing over screen time, both want connection just through different mediums. A political disagreement often masks common values about safety or fairness. Sympathia turns opponents into partners by revealing the hidden threads between them. For a tangible experiment, try this today. Perform one act where the only beneficiary is someone you'll never meet. Donate unused computing power to cancer research. Leave a glowing review for a small business. Pick up litter in a park you rarely visit. These aren't just good deeds, they're exercises in stretching your sense of self. Like a muscle, the more you train this awareness, the more naturally it guides decisions. The paradox, the more you acknowledge dependence on the wider web of people, ecosystems, even luck, the less powerless you feel. Because interconnection isn't just vulnerability, it's leverage. The entrepreneur who designs products serving both profit and planet builds lasting success. The leader who sees employees as limbs of one body fosters loyalty no paycheck could buy. So tonight, as you scroll through news feeds or walk through crowds, shift your lens. Those strangers aren't extras in your story, you're all co-authors. And when actions flow from that truth, resilience stops being a solo struggle. It becomes a shared strength, as boundless as the web Marcus Aurelius saw glimmering in the cosmos. Principle 11 unlocks one of Stoicism's most enduring tools, the daily practice of journaling. Long before bullet journals or productivity apps, Marcus Aurelius scribbled his private reflections in meditations, never intending them for publication. Those pages, filled with raw self-dialogue, became one of history's greatest guides to resilience. The Stoics didn't just write, they processed. Seneca described his nightly ritual. I examine my entire day, asking, where did I stumble? What progress did I make? Modern science now confirms what they intuited. Writing organizes chaos. Studies show journaling lowers cortisol, sharpens focus, and even boosts immune function by reducing stress-induced inflammation. Consider two people facing the same setback, a sudden job loss. One spirals in anxious loops, the other grabs a notebook and asks, what can I control right now? What strengths have carried me through past challenges? That simple act shifts the brain from panic to problem-solving mode. Psychologists call this externalization, taking tangled thoughts and giving them structure on paper. The Stoics called it wisdom. Here's how to make it practical tonight. Borrow Seneca's 3-question template. 1. What did I handle well today? Acknowledge growth. 2. Where did I act out of fear or habit? Spot patterns. 3. What's one small step toward virtue tomorrow? Set intention. This isn't diary-style venting, it's targeted self-coaching. A startup founder I know uses this method, weekly noting decisions that aligned with integrity rather than short-term gains. Over time, those pages became a compass during tough calls. For those who resist writing, try voice notes or even sketching thoughts. The medium matters less than the reflection. Even 5 minutes of sorting mental clutter can untangle knots that hours of worrying won't. As Marcus reminded himself, throw out your wandering thoughts, stay focused on what's in front of you. Journaling is the whetstone that sharpens that focus, one honest line at a time. So grab any scrap of paper tonight. Ask yourself what the Stoics asked centuries ago. If today were a lesson, what would its core message be? The answer might surprise you, and in that surprise lies the first step toward clarity. Principle 12 tackles a paradox that baffles even the wisest: the art of enjoying pleasure without being enslaved by it. Seneca, who navigated Rome's decadence without losing his integrity, wrote, "It is not the man who has too little who is poor, but the one who craves more." The Stoics weren't killjoys, they were connoisseurs of moderation. Their target wasn't joy, it was the insatiable hunger for more joy that leaves us emptier than before. Look at modern dopamine traps: endless scrolling, binge-watching, sugar-laced snacks engineered to override our fullness cues. These aren't inherently evil, but they're designed to blur the line between enough and excess. The difference between a glass of wine with dinner and drinking to numb stress: one enhances life, the other hijacks it. Stoic temperance asks, are you savoring this pleasure or is it savoring you? Take social media. A quick check-in to connect with friends can uplift, but when the thumb moves on autopilot, chasing that next hit of validation, the platform stops being a tool, it becomes a treadmill. The same applies to workaholism, shopping, even exercise. Any pleasure untethered from intention morphs into a subtle form of avoidance. Here's the litmus test. Does this indulgence restore you or drain you? A weekend Netflix marathon that leaves you energized is worlds apart from one that fuels guilt over neglected goals. The Stoics didn't advocate austerity, they sought sovereignty. As Seneca advised, set limits to leisure lest you fall into idleness when seeking relaxation. Try this today. Pick one small pleasure, your morning coffee, a gaming session, and savor it fully, then pause before craving the next hit. That space between "this feels good" and "I need more" is where freedom lives. Temperance isn't about less enjoyment, it's about more awareness, because the greatest luxury isn't unlimited access, it's knowing when you've had enough. Think of it like seasoning food. A pinch of salt enhances flavor, dumping the whole shaker ruins the dish. Pleasures work the same way. The Stoics mastered what psychologists now call the Goldilocks principle. Not too little, not too much, just enough to nourish without numbing. So tonight, as you reach for that extra episode or second drink, ask, am I choosing this or is habit choosing for me? The answer might save you from tomorrow's regret and unlock a deeper, quieter kind of joy. Principle 13 reveals an unexpected superpower: strategic silence. Epictetus drilled this into his students with characteristic bluntness. We have 2 ears and 1 mouth so that we can listen twice as much as we speak. In an age where opinions flood social feeds and conversations compete to be heard, Stoic silence isn't passive. It's a deliberate act of strength. Think of it as emotional jiu-jitsu. By refusing to engage every impulse, you redirect energy toward what truly matters. Take a heated negotiation. The amateur talks too soon, revealing their hand. The pro stays quiet, noticing unspoken cues, a clenched jaw, a hesitant pause, that reveal more than words ever could. Or consider parenting. Reacting instantly to a child's tantrum often escalates it, while measured silence creates space for them to self-regulate. This isn't avoidance, it's emotional aikido, using silence to diffuse rather than confront. Modern research validates this ancient insight. Harvard studies show negotiators who pause 15 seconds before responding achieve better outcomes. Therapists use intentional silence to help clients access deeper truths. Even in nature, predators exploit noise. Prey that stays silent survives longest. The parallel is clear. Those who master silence control the rhythm of interactions. Here's where most stumble. They confuse silence with weakness. But watch any courtroom drama. The witness who blurts answers loses credibility, while the one who pauses commands attention. Gossip offers another litmus test. Stoics viewed idle talk as spiritual pollution, not because they were joyless, but because words are currency. Slandering others drains your integrity account without depositing anything of value. As Epictetus warned, if anyone tells you that so and so speaks ill of you, don't defend yourself, just reply, he must not know my other faults, or he would have mentioned those too. Ready for the challenge. Observe a day of intentional silence, not monastic vows, just conscious pauses. Before replying to texts, wait 5 minutes. In meetings, note how often you speak to fill space rather than contribute. You'll discover 2 truths. First, how little actually requires your voice. Second, how much others reveal when you stop performing. This principle isn't about muting yourself. It's about upgrading your words from background noise to precision tools. Like a sculptor who removes marble to reveal art, strategic silence carves away chatter to expose meaning. Try it tomorrow. Let 3 unimportant comments go unspoken. The space left empty won't feel like loss, it will feel like power. Principle 14 turns frustration into freedom, the art of non-reactivity. Picture this: you're stuck in gridlock traffic, late for an important meeting. Horns blare, your grip tightens on the wheel. That surge of anger, it feels automatic, unavoidable. But Marcus Aurelius saw something most miss. Between stimulus and response, there's a space. In that space is our power to choose. 2,000 years later, neuroscience proved him right. The brain has a 6-second window before stress chemicals hijack rational thought. That gap, that's where your sovereignty lies. The Stoics didn't pretend emotions vanish. They trained to suspend them long enough to choose their battles. Think of it like a martial artist sidestepping a punch rather than taking it head-on. A modern parallel, emergency room doctors. Their secret isn't lacking fear, it's pausing before acting. That split-second decision to steady their breathing before stitching a wound often means the difference between precision and panic. Try this today. When a trigger hits, a snippy email, a spilled coffee, freeze. Count 4 breaths in, 4 breaths out. Ancient Stoics used this to break the chain reaction between event and explosion. Modern research shows it activates the prefrontal cortex, putting logic back in the driver's seat. The traffic jam hasn't moved, but your relationship to it has. That's the alchemy of non-reactivity, transforming helplessness into agency. Notice what's not happening here. No suppression of feelings, no toxic positivity. This is about creating just enough daylight between you and the reflex to ask, does this reaction serve me? A CEO client of mine uses this before firing off tense replies. His rule: if I wouldn't want this email framed on my office wall, I rewrite it after breathing. The result: fewer escalations, more solutions. So here's your challenge. Pick one routine frustration this week, a slow grocery line, a toddler's tantrum, and practice the gap. Not to mute your humanity, but to honor it fully, because emotions make great advisors but terrible dictators. And when you master that pause, you'll discover a paradox. By seeming to do less, you actually regain control. The traffic jam ends eventually, but the skill of non-reactivity, that's a lifetime passed to smoother roads, no matter what chaos unfolds outside your windshield. Principle 15 cuts through one of society's deepest illusions, the distinction between character and reputation. The Stoics drew a line as sharp as a blade between these two. Your character is what you are, your reputation is merely what others think you are. Cato the Younger, the Roman senator who wore mismatched robes to the forum just to prove he didn't care about others' sneers, embodied this. When mocked for his unconventional appearance, he simply replied, "Let them marvel at my clothes. I'll be too busy living by my principles to notice." Fast forward to today's world of curated social media personas and viral outrage. How often do we twist ourselves into knots trying to manage perceptions rather than strengthen integrity? Cancel culture isn't new, it's just gossip amplified by algorithms. The Stoic question remains, why outsource your self-worth to a fickle audience? Here's the modern dilemma. A single misunderstood tweet can trigger a firestorm. But the person who obsesses over every possible misinterpretation lives in perpetual anxiety, while the one anchored in their values handles backlash with quiet resolve. Think of the nurse who prioritizes patient care over hospital politics, or the artist who creates for personal truth rather than trends. Their power doesn't come from universal approval, it comes from inner alignment. Consider the litmus test Marcus Aurelius used. It never ceases to amaze me. We care more about what strangers think of us than how we see ourselves. Flip that script, whose judgment actually merits your attention. A mentor who knows your potential. A child who mirrors your behavior. The version of you that greets you in the mirror at midnight. Reputation is like smoke. It shifts with the wind. Character is the fire itself, impossible to fake once tested. Try this today. Write down 3 non-negotiable values, not aspirational ideals, but traits you've already demonstrated under pressure. Now recall a recent moment you wavered to please others. See the gap, that's your growth edge. The Stoics weren't saying reputation doesn't matter. They insisted it must never dictate matters. As Epictetus put it, if you wish to improve, be content to appear clueless in what you're clueless about. There's a reason history remembers Cotto's integrity, not his fashion sense. When your actions align with your principles, external noise fades into background static. Not because you're indifferent to others, but because you're too focused on building something no opinion can destroy. That's the paradox. The less you chase validation, the more trustworthy you become. And in a world starving for authenticity, that's the rarest reputation of all. Principle 16 delivers a wake-up call we all need to hear. Stop postponing your life while waiting for the right moment. Seneca put it brutally. You are living as if destined to live forever. Your own frailty never occurs to you. You waste time as if drawing from a full and abundant supply, though all the while that day which you devote to something or someone may be your last. Those words sting because they're true. How many hours have we lost scrolling feeds while sunlight fades outside? How often do we half listen to loved ones, minds already leaping to tomorrow's to-do list? Modern life magnifies this struggle. Notifications pull us into digital quicks, and one quick email check spirals into 30 minutes of reactive busy work. The irony, we tolerate distractions we'd never accept from others. Imagine a friend constantly checking their phone while you spoke. You'd feel disrespected. Yet we rob ourselves of presence daily, as if our time is less valuable than anyone else's. Here's where Stoicism meets modern mindfulness. Both agree, anxiety lives in the future, regret in the past, but power resides now. Not in some abstract present moment, but in this exact breath, this keyboard under your fingers, this birdsong outside your window. The Roman who fretted about barbarian invasions 2 provinces away suffered no less than we do from hypothetical career disasters or climate anxieties. The format changed, the mental trap didn't. Try this immediately, the 5 senses drill. 1. Pause whatever you're doing. 2. Name 5 things you see: the coffee mug's chip, dust motes in sunlight. 3. 4 textures you feel: shirt fabric, chair against your back. 4. 3 sounds: humming appliances, distant laughter. 5. 2 scents: hand soap, rain-soaked pavement. 6. 1 taste: lingering mint from toothpaste. This isn't just calming, it's rebellion. Every sensory detail you notice is a brick in the dam against time's river. Ancient Stoics lacked smartphones but faced equal distractions: gossip in baths, chariot races, imperial politics. Their antidote: intentional focus. Marcus Aurelius wrote his journal at war camps. Epictetus taught while exiled. There now was no more convenient than yours. That project you keep delaying, that conversation you're rehearsing for someday, the Stoics would ask, if not now, then when? Not as a guilt trip, but as liberation. Because presence isn't passive, it's the ultimate act of reclaiming your life from the twin thieves of regret and speculation. Close this tab, silence the phone, and for the next hour, do one thing as if it were the last time you'd ever do it. The laundry, the spreadsheet, the bedtime story infused with that awareness. Even mundane moments become sacred. Here's the secret Seneca knew: we don't get points for all the plans we made, only for what we actually lived. Principle 17 transforms a common piece of advice into a life-altering discipline: gratitude as daily practice, not just passive feeling. Epictetus framed it with typical Stoic bluntness. Seek not for things to happen as you wish, but wish for things to happen as they do. At first glance, that sounds like surrender. Look deeper, it's a recipe for unshakable equilibrium. The Stoics didn't wait for perfect circumstances to feel thankful. They mined ordinary moments for hidden gold. Consider their morning rituals. Before checking phones or scanning headlines, they'd anchor the day with what Marcus Aurelius called the gift of waking. Not some grand poetic gesture, just a visceral pause to appreciate breath in the lungs, light through the window, a body capable of rising. Modern science now reveals why this works. Gratitude journaling reduces cortisol by 23% and boosts serotonin production, neurological proof that thankfulness isn't soft, it's strategic. But here's where most gratitude practices falter. They focus solely on the obvious: health, family, a roof overhead. The Stoics dug deeper. Seneca wrote letters savoring the luxury of a quiet hour or a friend's candid criticism. Even suffering became grist for the mill. Illness reminds me of wellness, loss sharpens appreciation for what remains. This isn't Pollyanna positivity, it's alchemizing everything into fuel. Your challenge today: list 3 unexpected blessings. That delayed train giving you uninterrupted reading time, the criticism that revealed a blind spot, even the discomfort pushing you to grow. A tech CEO client of mine starts meetings this way. Name one inconvenient thing that helped you this week. Answers range from server crashes exposing security flaws to spilled coffee prompting a needed break. The effect: teams stop resisting problems and start leveraging them. Gratitude done right isn't a warm blanket, it's a spotlight. It doesn't ignore life's sharp edges, it reveals their purpose. So tonight, when you tally wins, ask, where did friction polish me? That's the Stoic twist, thanking life not just for the feast, but for the hunger that makes it sweet. Principle 18 wields one of Stoicism's sharpest mental tools, detaching from outcomes while giving your all to the process. Picture an archer drawing their bow. They control the stance, the breath, the release, but once the arrow flies, wind, luck, and physics take over. The Stoics argued that happiness crumbles when we chain it to results beyond our command. Epictetus framed it plainly: make the best use of what is in your power and take the rest as it happens. This isn't passivity, it's focus. Elite athletes live this truth. A basketball player obsessing over the scoreboard misses the shot. One locked into their form increases their odds without guarantee. Writers know it too. Stressing over bestseller list stifles creativity, while falling in love with the daily craft often leads to work that resonates. The paradox: by releasing death grips on outcomes, we often improve them. Spot your own attachment traps. Do you procrastinate on projects fearing they won't be perfect? Do compliments deflate you if they're not from the right people? Does a single rejection make you question years of effort? A tech founder I coached embodied this. Her startup's valuation obsessed her until she reframed: my job isn't to control the market, it's to build something so valuable that markets can't ignore it. That shift didn't lower standards, it freed her to innovate beyond approval metrics. The Stoic twist: detachment isn't indifference, it's trust. Trust that showing up fully, regardless of applause, is its own reward. That seeds planted with integrity grow even if you never see the harvest. So next time you fixate on a result, a promotion, a milestone, someone's opinion, ask, did I honor the process? If yes, the outcome is commentary, not verdict. The archer's secret isn't in the target's bullseye. It's in the stillness before the release, the moment effort and surrender meet. Master that balance and you'll find a deeper victory, playing the game so well that even losses become steps in a larger win. Principle 19 slices through modern illusions of productivity with a timeless truth: life is long if you know how to use it, but tragically short when wasted on empty busyness. Seneca's On the Shortness of Life reads like a letter fired across centuries, aimed squarely at our frazzled present. It is not that we have so little time, but that we lose much of it. The Romans didn't have Slack pings or doom scrolling, yet Seneca diagnosed the same disease, mistaking motion for meaning, mistaking being occupied for being alive. Hustle culture worships at the altar of exhaustion, treating sleep deprivation as a badge of honor and calendars crammed with meetings as proof of worth. But Stoicism asks the razor-sharp question: how much of this activity is actually advancing your life versus just filling it? Picture two farmers. One spends dawn to dusk frantically digging holes and refilling them. The other plants orchards that bear fruit for decades. Both are busy, only one is productive. The modern twist: we've outsourced our attention to algorithms that profit from our fragmentation. That quick check of social media. Seneca would call it borrowing time from your future self. The meetings that could be emails. Death steals these hours while you're not looking. His remedy wasn't laziness, it was ruthless prioritization. Imagine auditing your week like a financial statement. What expenditures of time yield true returns? Deep work, loved ones, health, and which are leaky buckets? Try this today. Name one trivial pursuit you'll abandon this week. Not just a time waster, we all know those, but something masquerading as important. The perfectionism in a low-stakes task, the unnecessary committee role, even the "I'll just research this a bit more" procrastination. Seneca's harshest truth: you're dying every day and calling it living. But here's the liberating flip side. When you stop conflating busyness with purpose, time expands. The executive who delegates well gains back hours. The artist who guards creative space produces more. Even leisure becomes richer when chosen deliberately. Netflix binges after meaningful work feel earned, not escapist. So tonight, as you scroll through tomorrow's to-do list, ask Seneca's question: is this task worthy of a finite life? The answer might just hand you back years you thought were already lost. Principle 20 pulls back the curtain on one of Stoicism's most transformative truths. Courage isn't the absence of fear, but the mastery of it. Seneca, who faced exile, chronic illness, and ultimately execution by his own student, wrote, "A gem cannot be polished without friction, nor a man perfected without trials." He wasn't romanticizing suffering, he was revealing its hidden curriculum. The mind, like a muscle, only grows stronger when tested, yet modern comfort culture urges us to avoid discomfort at all costs. History's most resilient figures understood this instinctively. Take Admiral James Stockdale, shot down over Vietnam and held as a POW for 7 years. Beaten routinely and kept in solitary confinement, he later credited Stoicism for his survival. "I never lost faith that I would prevail, not because I ignored the brutality, but because I accepted it as the price of my eventual freedom." His captors controlled his body, they couldn't touch his mind, but here's where Stoicism gets practical for everyday life. You don't need a prison cell to train courage. It's in the small, daily choices. Speaking up when you risk rejection, starting that project knowing it might fail, even sitting with silence instead of numbing it with distractions. Your challenge this week. Pick one fear you've been avoiding, not a life-threatening danger, but a growth-limiting hesitation. Maybe it's having that honest conversation with a loved one, or finally launching the side hustle you've overplanned. The key isn't the scale of the act, but the willingness to step toward discomfort with eyes open. A patient of mine battling anxiety began with micro-courage, saying, "I disagree," in meetings when she'd normally nod along. Each small victory rewired her brain's fear response. That's the Stoic secret: courage compounds. Today's conquered discomfort becomes tomorrow's unshakable confidence. So ask yourself, what's one thing I've been putting off because I'm afraid not of the outcome, but of my own ability to handle it? The answer might just point you toward your next breakthrough. Because adversity doesn't build character, it reveals it. And once you see that strength in yourself, no setback can ever truly break you. Principle 21 brings us full circle, the Stoic sage as both guiding light and mirror. This isn't some distant, untouchable figure on a mountaintop, but an ideal that sharpens our daily choices. Marcus Aurelius put it plainly: Waste no more time arguing what a good person should be. B1. The sage isn't flawless, they're fiercely committed to progress. Like a compass needle pointing north even as the ship rocks, the sage's wisdom lies in realignment, not perfection. Consider the paradox. Stoicism's highest standard exists precisely because it's unattainable. Just as archers aim beyond the target to hit their mark, envisioning the sage, one who meets chaos with calm, injustice with integrity, and pleasure with temperance, keeps us stretching upward. But here's the liberating truth. The gap between where you are and the ideal isn't failure, it's fuel. History's most respected figures embodied this. Nelson Mandela studied Stoicism during imprisonment, not to become a sage overnight, but to borrow the sage's clarity when his own faltered. A modern entrepreneur might channel the sage's detachment during a funding crunch, asking, what would someone with unshakable focus do here? The answer isn't about mimicking perfection, it's about accessing your own latent wisdom. Here's how to make this practical today. Instead of overwhelming yourself with a complete overhaul, borrow the sage incremental mindset. Epictetus taught, no great thing is created suddenly, any more than a bunch of grapes or a fig. If you tell me you desire a fig, I answer that there must be time. Let it first blossom, then bear fruit, then ripen. Your challenge, pick one small, sage-like action within reach. Pause before reacting to criticism, just 3 breaths. Write a single sentence of honest self-reflection before bed. Release one trivial complaint you'd normally vocalize. The sage isn't a finish line, they're a reflection of your own potential in moments of choice. So as we close these 21 principles, remember, wisdom isn't about arriving, it's about aligning. Each day, each challenge offers a fresh chance to ask, what's the next right step? And in that question, you're already walking the path. As we reach the final stretch of this journey through Stoic wisdom, let's pause and recognize what we've gathered, not just ideas, but tools. 21 principles forged in the fires of ancient adversity, yet sharper than ever in today's chaos. This isn't philosophy to admire under glass, it's a workshop manual for the soul. From focusing on what you control to embracing discomfort, from loving fate to remembering your mortality, each principle interlocks like armor plating against life's unpredictability. Here's the secret most miss. Stoicism doesn't ask for perfection, just practice. Marcus Aurelius scribbled his struggles in the dark. Seneca rehearsed his own exhales before facing Nero's whims. What separated them wasn't invulnerability, but commitment to the daily grind of self-mastery. Think of these principles as mental resistance bands. The more you stretch them, the stronger your resilience grows. Epictetus, who knew true hardship as a slave, left us a parting gift. No man is free who is not master of himself. That's the ultimate takeaway. Not freedom from hardship, but freedom within it, the unshakable kind no external force can confiscate. Your move now. Don't let this be just another video you consume and forget. Pick one principle, just one, to test drive today. Maybe it's pausing before reacting to a provocation or reframing a frustration as fuel. Then share your experiment in the comments. How did it change your day? What surprised you? This is where wisdom moves from your screen to your life. If these lessons resonated, consider joining our community of modern Stoics. Hit subscribe and let's keep unpacking timeless tools for turbulent times together. Because the real measure of philosophy isn't what you know, it's how you live, and your next chapter starts